Welcome to the Christian life. In this class, we're going to cover a number of issues. We'll start off going over some things from a distance, looking at things as a whole, and then we're going to dive in more deeply into the various doctrines, the various practices, and even some application of the Christian, the biblical worldview or story to every aspect of our lives. The way that I'll be conducting these lectures is as follows, and how they relate to your readings is really important. So my MO, the way that I go about interacting with the texts and with you is I focus on the things that jumped out at me, the things that interested me, the things that I think that you might need a little more explanation of, the things that may seem obvious, I may try to make less obvious for you. And so as we go through these texts, I'm not going to be talking about everything in them. Your job is to read the entire text. The things that I don't talk about, you are still responsible to know. So these are deep dives into certain portions of the reading. Let's get started. The first chapter of our first reading, Why Should I Believe Christianity?, is all about epistemology. Epistemology is made up of two words, two Greek terms, episteme and logos. And these terms episteme has to do with knowledge, with understanding. The idea here is to focus on the highest achievement of our intellect. And then logos, of course, means the study of, investigation of, the logic of. So the first chapter is all about the study of knowledge, belief, evidence, understanding, and related issues, the highest achievement of our intellect. Now, can you think of an example where someone, perhaps you, really should believe something, but they don't? They fail in some way with respect to their intellect or rationality. Now, I think this happens a lot when attachments are at issue. Perhaps my son is a criminal, and I have lots of evidence to support this, but I refuse to believe it. Perhaps my country or church or political party has done some really nasty things, and I have evidence to support this, or at least I have access to evidence to support this, but I refuse to believe it. Perhaps God's existence really is very clear. Or perhaps it's really obvious that abortion is wrong. Perhaps it's really clear that sex outside marriage really is destructive. Can you think about those cases, think about those examples where what's going on is the person has all of this evidence that warrants them in believing something, and they refuse to do so. Now, can you also think of examples where someone should not believe something, but they do? So these are going to be cases of sort of misfirings, malfunctionings of our intellect, of our rationality. Now, here's a general principle of belief, or you might think this is a way of sort of characterizing, honing in on what beliefs are. If someone believes something, and let's call that thing that they believe, let's call it P, then they think that P is true. So to believe something, right, to believe P is to take P to be true. Putting it a little more abstractly, if S believes that P, then S thinks that P is true. Now, to see this, let's consider some odd statements. So this should sound odd to your ears. Imagine if I said, I believe that snow is white, but I do not think snow is white is true. That's a weird thing, right? That shows us that belief and truth are somehow connected, right? Think about it like this. I think that snow is white, but I do not believe it. That also sounds odd, right? Why do those two examples sound odd to us? Well, because to believe some claim is to think that it is accurate. It's to think that the claim is correct. It's to think that it is true. Now, this tells us, right, that beliefs, this mental state that we call beliefs, are directed at truth in some way. In the same way that our eyes are directed towards seeing, that our hearts are directed towards pumping blood, beliefs are directed towards truth. Now, that doesn't mean that all you got to do is believe something and thereby it's true. Just as our eyes can malfunction and hearts can malfunction, our cognitive states can malfunction. But the goal of believing is the truth. So our epistemic goal, let's call it that, our epistemic goal is to believe only truths and no falsehoods. Now, how should we go about achieving our epistemic goal? How should we go about believing only truths and no falsehoods? Well, for most beliefs, we cannot tell whether they are true just by the content of the belief. But for some we can, and it's really important to highlight these. Some of our beliefs, we can know they are true just by thinking about the content of the belief. Let me give you a few examples. I exist. Red is a color. Triangles have 3 sides. Now, these are claims that are true, and we can know that these are true just by reflection on the content of the claim. Some think that the content, that the claim God exists belongs in this category as well. That is, God's existence is just as obvious or self-evident as triangles have 3 sides. So there's this category of claims that we can know are true simply by the content of the claim. If you grasp the content, you know that the claim is true. Now, there are other claims that are kind of cousins of those claims, but shouldn't be confused with them. And these are claims that we can know just by introspection, right? We sort of investigate the interior of our minds or our mental states, and we can know that they are true. Let me give you some examples. I am tired. I am in pain. I am sad. Now, this class of beliefs is also important to remember. So, a lot of the things that we believe require reasons to ensure that they are true. Not all of our beliefs are like that. Or the reasons for the truth of the belief is super easy to get. So we've got that first class, beliefs that I can know that are true simply by the content of the claim. And then we've got this second class of beliefs, beliefs that I can know are true by mere introspection. But not all beliefs are like that. In fact, perhaps the vast majority of the things that you believe are not like that. So let's consider a different sort of belief. How about this one? There are lizard people who control the world from sewers. Some of you might be familiar with this. This is actually a belief that some people maintain. I kid you not, look it up. Now, should you believe that there are lizard people who control the world from sewers? No, at least you shouldn't do it simply because I said so, right? That belief is not a belief that is a member of that first class of beliefs that you can know are true simply in virtue of the content. It's not a belief that is a member of that second class of beliefs that you can know are true simply by introspection, right? That's not this belief. There are lizard people who control the world from sewers. That belief is not like either of those. It's not true simply in virtue of its content. We're going to need additional reasons if we are to believe it. So in many cases, then, the truth or falsity of a claim cannot be determined by the content of the claim itself. So in those cases, we need additional reasons to support the claim in order to rationally believe it. So this gives rise to what I will call the content principle. So here's the content principle. In general, the content of the claim determines which kinds of reasons are needed to support it. The content of the claim determines which kinds of reasons are needed to support it. It's an important principle. We're actually going to use it a number of times throughout this course. So, for example, suppose that I tell you that there is a 50% off sale at H&M. Just think for a moment, what kinds of reasons would support that claim? What kinds of reasons wouldn't support that claim? So it's important to notice that the content of the claim determine the types of reasons relevant to it. Not just any sort of reasons would do. If I tell you there's a 50% off sale at H&M, and you ask me, oh, how do you know? And I tell you I shook my magic 8-ball, and my magic 8-ball told me that there's a 50% off sale at H&M, you shouldn't believe my claim. Those reasons are not relevant to the content of the claim. So it's really interesting, right? If you think hard about this, it's super fascinating that there are some things that we should believe, right? That is, not believing something in some cases is irrational. It's a failure on our part. It's what we might call an intellectual wrong or an intellectual sin. Now, we do need, as we progress, we do need to consider an objection to sort of everything that I just said. There are some people who think that there is no such thing as the truth with a capital T, right? They might say something like this: look, all truth is relative. Maybe to illustrate this, and I want to be careful here because not everyone means the same thing by these phrases, but today, a lot of people are using the following types of phrases: my truth, her truth, his truth, your truth. Now, some people, not all people, I think in some cases all people mean by that is an expression of, look, that's my experience, that's something that happened to me, this is my interpretation. But in some cases, some people might mean by those phrases that there is no such thing as absolute truth or objective truth. Now, an absolute objective truth is a truth that holds no matter what anyone thinks about it. So most people, upon reflection, will grant that at least some claims are absolutely or objectively true. That is, they're true independently of what anyone actually believes, of what anyone actually thinks about that claim. Let me give you some examples. Some of these might work for you, some of these might not. Water is H2O. Japan bombed Pearl Harbor in 1941. 2 + 2 = 4. The earth is spherical. Now, those claims at least seem to be such that if they are true, they're true no matter what anyone thinks about them. In other words, even if we all suddenly believe that the earth is triangular, that would not make it the case that the earth really is triangular. So the idea is this: there are certain facts. Those facts determine the truth. Our job is to try to discover what that truth is to get our mind to conform to reality. Now, let me give you an even more compelling reason to believe that the claim all truth is relative has to be false. Okay, and here's the general idea. I'm going to try to show you that it's a self-defeating claim. It's self-defeating to claim that all truth is relative. So here's a simplified argument to show that, and I'll comment on the argument just a little bit. Step one. So I'm going to give you an argument that's going to show, it's attempting to show that the claim all truth is relative is false, right? That it's somehow contradictory or self-defeating. In order to do that, I'm going to set up this argument in a formal way. I'm going to provide you with a number of premises, and those premises together imply or entail the conclusion. Okay, premise one. If all truth is relative, then the claim that all truth is relative is itself relatively true. Meditate on that for a moment. Premise two. But if all truth is relative, is itself relatively true, then it is not true for everyone. That's just what it means for something to be relatively true. Premise three. But if it is not true for everyone, that is, if the claim all truth is relative is not true for everyone, then it is false for someone. Premise four. If it is false for someone, then some truth is absolute for someone. 5. If some truth is absolute for someone, then some truth is true for everyone. That's just what it means for a truth to be absolute. That is, it's true for everyone. 6. Therefore, if all truth is relative, then some truth is true for everyone. Ooh, hopefully you hear that. Something weird just happened. Let me say it again. 6. Hence, if all truth is relative, then some truth is true for everyone. Now notice, here's premise 7. Premise 6 is a contradiction. Premise 6 is self-defeating. And so we get 8, our conclusion. Hence, it is false that all truth is relative. That is, the claim all truth is relative undermined itself. It implied the claim that some truth is not relative. So from the claim all truth is relative, I tried to show that that implies all truth is not relative, and that's contradictory. So we have an absurdity. All truth is relative implies an absurdity, so we should reject the claim that all truth is relative. That is, we should embrace the claim that some truths are indeed objective. Now, what about some other claims? What about, for example, religious claims? So you can embrace the claim that some truths are objective. In fact, almost everybody would on reflection. But those same people might still be hesitant to embrace the claim that religious beliefs could possibly be objectively true. Okay, so the question, now this is relevant to our class, obviously. And the question we're considering in this first book, in the first portion of our course, is why should I believe Christianity? Right? So the fact that some people think that when it comes to religious matters like Christianity, there's no such thing as truth, that fact is obviously relevant for our class. What should we say to them? So these are people who are fine with objective truth. In general, they just don't think religious claims could be objectively true. Now, let's sort of dive in by thinking about how most people operate, right? So most people are fine admitting that there are some scientific or historical claims that are objectively true. But those same people might be hesitant when it comes to moral or religious claims. But now, if those people are fine in embracing the idea that scientific or historical claims can be objectively true, but they reject religious claims, they're going to find themselves in a bind. And here's the bind. for a lot of religions, and especially Christianity, they rest on, they involve tons of historical claims. So think about it like this. Christianity claims that Jesus really existed, historically existed, that he was crucified, that he resurrected from the dead. Those are historical claims. And so they're either true or false, right? Remember, we're considering persons who are fine embracing historical claims as objectively true, but are reluctant to embrace religious claims as objectively true. Those sorts of persons are going to be in trouble because Christianity says that its claims are historically true. So it doesn't make sense, right? Think about those claims that I just made. Christianity claims that Jesus existed, that he was crucified, that he resurrected from the dead. It doesn't make any sense to say that those might be true for some, but not for others. Now, unless someone means by that, well, some people believe those things and others do not. But of course, that's uninteresting. We already knew that. We already knew some people believe those things and some don't, right? And furthermore, it's true for nearly every claim that can be made, that some people believe it and some do not. Our interest isn't necessarily in what people believe. Our interest is in what should we believe. Now, perhaps what some people might want to say here is that we can know some scientific, historical, mathematical, and logical claims, but we can't know any religious claims. So they might want to say, in other words, look, it's possible that these religious claims are indeed objectively true. At least some could be objectively true, but we just can't know which ones. Now, this is a kind of skepticism. Now, there's skepticism about aliens, about the number of stars, about claims in quantum physics, about cosmology. There's skepticism about mathematical claims, or at least some of them. Skepticism about the external world, whether there's a world outside of our minds. There's skepticism about other minds, whether other minds besides my own actually exist. And there's skepticism about almost anything. Now, in general, skeptics about some area say that it's just not possible to know truths about that area, even if there are truths. Even if there are truths in that particular domain. Look, I'm a skeptic about some things. I'm a skeptic about aliens. I just don't know, right? And you probably are a skeptic about some things as well, or at least I think you should be. But let's think about skepticism about religion. And so that claim would be, no one can know religious truths even if there are some. So, no one should believe any religious claims. If it's not possible for you to know whether or not they are true, then you shouldn't believe any of them. So, what we need to do here in order to investigate religious skepticism, as we might call it, we need to figure out a little bit, what does it take to know something? And here's my claim. The religious skeptic is most likely inserting the following assumption. They're assuming something like, in order to know something, you have to be certain of it. So they're assuming that knowledge requires certainty. But does it? Does knowledge require certainty? We need to distinguish, in order to answer this question well, we need to distinguish between psychological certainty and epistemic certainty. Okay? So, first, psychological certainty. This is just the feeling that I'm certain. This is just my own subjective, interior, psychological feeling, sense that I know it's the case. It's certain. I'm certain the Dallas Cowboys are going to win the Super Bowl this year. So I can be psychologically certain about all sorts of things, and it has nothing to do with the truth. It doesn't imply the truth at all. Epistemic certainty is different. Epistemic certainty is where the reasons guarantee the truth. The reasons entail the truth. Now, here's my claim. Knowledge does not require epistemic certainty. That is, knowledge doesn't require, in order for you to know something, it's not the case that You have to have reasons that entail the truth of that thing. If knowledge did require epistemic certainty, you would know almost nothing. And in fact, you couldn't even know that knowledge requires certainty. So if knowledge requires certainty, you couldn't know that knowledge requires certainty, so you shouldn't believe it. So, can I know something? Let's think about some examples. Can I know something without being certain about it? I think I can. I think I know that I have hands, but I'm not certain of it. I think I know that my wife is not an alien, but I'm not certain of it. I think I know that the earth is spherical, but I, and I say no one else, is certain of it. So the goal of the book, Why Should I Believe Christianity, is to show us that there are really good reasons to believe that Christianity is true. And since knowledge does not require certainty, the goal of the book, Why Should I Believe Christianity, is to convince us that we can know that Christianity is true.